Welcome to day 16 of our 28 days of connections, and today's practice is really focusing on the theme of appreciating what we can do and being grateful for the things we have. I talked about in today's video this idea of it's often at this time of year we kind of focus on the things that we want to give up or those sorts of things, and I just wanted to take the opportunity to perhaps focus on the things that we could appreciate more. So the practice today is really designed to appreciate ourselves more. When we do yoga, I think we often focus or can focus on the bits that we can't do, or perhaps the bits that we'd like to do, and where we want to get to, rather than the moment that we're in. Obviously, the idea behind yoga is that it tries to bring you into your body and the current time and space, but our mind is still working all the time to kind of try and combat that. So the practice today is quite a simple one, but just one that we're going to spend a bit longer in poses, just to appreciate the pose itself for what it does and how it feels or doesn't feel. And one of the key things I want you to do today as well is appreciate what you can do and be grateful, and almost send an intention every time we do a pose as to all the things in that pose that you can do. And if there are poses that you really simply cannot do at all, then I want you to almost stop and be grateful for that moment of rest, or be grateful for the moment that you're giving yourself to recognize that you aren't there. So rather than this sort of negative self-talk that we have sometimes, it's just this idea of just being grateful for everything that we can do, rather than focusing on the things that we can't. So we're going to begin by just kind of, as we always do, settling into the practice. So coming into a comfortable seated position, and bringing our attention to the points of the body that make contact with the ground. And it's almost as if you can kind of really zone in on those parts of the body, and the pressure that's being exerted down and the pressure that's coming back up to meet it. So that equilibrium of force, so that you either don't make a big hole in the ground, or that the ground doesn't push you up and push you out into space. It's that equilibrium. And then I want you to just reflect on that sense of gratitude for where you are, right, being here right now. And you may in your head kind of repeat a sort of affirmation or something, I am grateful for. And then moving on to our kind of body awareness, so connecting in with how our bodies feel today. Just taking some time to scan around, noticing all the parts that make up your body, maybe internally and externally. So noticing how they feel today. That's interesting, isn't it? I wasn't even thinking about it, and I scratched my arm. And it's one of those things, isn't it? A scratch or an itch. They're almost mindless sometimes, but then once you start doing it, they take all your attention. So just noticing any parts, and if there are any parts of your body that perhaps are demanding more of your attention today, just maybe sending some gratitude for what they do every day. might be about to get a Guinness appearance. There he is. Hey boy. So yeah, so just a noticing, an opportunity to notice and connect. And then moving on to the breath. And again, just an opportunity to connect and see how your breath is today. A bit like if you were sat on the bus next to it. Yeah. Not that many of us probably go on buses at the moment, but imagine, remember when we did, if you ever did go on buses, you're almost like the kind of, you're aware of the person you're sat next to on the bus, but you're not necessarily fully engaged in what they're doing, unless they're doing something really interesting, in which case you normally can't stop looking and seeing what they're doing. But today, the person or the breath isn't doing anything particularly interesting, so you're just going to sit and observe it, almost out the corner of your eye. Hey boy. Good boy. And then just to begin, we're just going to come into a butterfly leg position. So bringing your feet together. And again, if you need to sit up on a cushion or a blanket, then do. If it's more comfortable to have your hips slightly elevated, then sit in that way. And just bringing your feet together and just sitting nice and comfortably. Try and keep your back almost, you don't have to be bolt upright as if you're like, tense, but try and grow taller. And then just from this position, so we're going to stay here for a couple of minutes, just begin to notice any parts of your body, if there's any tension. And if in this position, for some people it's really, really uncomfortable, if you need some support under your knees to hold so that your legs and knees stay in place, then make sure that you put a cushion under each knee or something like that. Hey boy, come on. Oh, good boy. And if you think about in this position, there's a lot of parts of your body that you can be grateful for. Your hips are working, your knees are working, your feet are working to support you, your sit bones are working, your whole body is engaged in this position. And we often find things like this, we think, oh, that's not particularly working. I want to be doing planks, and I want to be doing downward dogs and all those sorts of things, because they feel like I'm shaping muscle or burning calories, or however we want to view it. But sometimes just sitting in these sorts of positions is still affecting our body. And so when you're in this position, just cultivating a sense of gratitude, rather than focusing on perhaps if there's and if there is anything that's really uncomfortable, then don't stay in the position, but rather than focusing on something you can't do. Lots of people are like, oh, my knees aren't low enough down, or I haven't got my heels far enough in, and if I bring my heels in, my knees don't drop as low. All those sorts of things. Turn off that talk and focus on what you can do and how amazing your body is, for what it does. This is a really, really nice pose for opening up your hips. Good boy. I'm going to move you before you fall asleep. Good boy. And so coming out of that position, and then we're just going to take one leg, how do I explain this? Right, so we've got my left leg is coming to wrap around into sort of a V-shaped position. So my left foot is now by my right bum cheek, and then I'm going to take my right legs and cross it over, so I could have just said cross it over, and bring it up and round so that I can sit with my legs crossed. Now this is something that might be really, really awkward for you, and it might go too much into your glutes, it might hurt your knees. So just find a position that's comfortable and that allows you to relax into it without there being a sense of pain or that idea that you're having to fight something in order to get into that position. I guess that's what I'm thinking about. We're trying to make this practice about appreciating what we can do, and part of that appreciation is being kind to how we treat ourselves. So just crossing one leg over the other. And if this position is not right for you, then maybe you can just take the leg under and have this one up rather than wrapped more round, if that makes sense. And again, we're just getting into the hips. And then just slowly unraveling and just being grateful for the opportunity to take up that posture in whatever form you had to, and then bringing your other leg round, crossing the other leg over and coming into the same position but on the other side. And you probably will find that one side is tighter than the other. Again, if this is much too uncomfortable, then just bring the leg round and then just hold this one up so it's not quite as intense. When you're ready, just unraveling yourself. And this is a really good time to show a bit of appreciation by maybe giving your legs and hips a little bit of a rub. And then we're just going to come into a nice tabletop position. Just coming to use the tabletop as a bit of a centering focus point. And we're just going to step a right leg through and come into a low lunge. So just, and again, if this is uncomfortable on your back knee, focusing on that appreciation thing rather than living through pain and hell, put a blanket or something soft under your knee. We have a fascination, it seems, with pain seeming to be the way that we understand something being almost good for us. It doesn't really make much sense. So just coming into this position. But you've never spent this long holding a low lunge before. So just coming out of that, bringing your right leg back. Again, if you need something soft and supportive under your knee, then put it there, and coming into a lunge, a low lunge. On the other side. And in this position, I can really, really notice how that length of time in this position really starts to get into the muscle. And coming back out. And maybe just giving yourself a little bit of a shake off. And then we're just going to step through with our right leg. Sorry, can't remember what I just did. Right leg and come through. So bringing your right, so now taking your right leg out, so slightly wider. So normally when we do a lunge, we have it sort of in that kind of position. We're going to bring it out. We're going to come to put both hands inside our right leg and then come up into more of a supported lunge. And that one's quite an intense sort of stretch, so I'm not going to get you to hold it for a long time, but you can also come down onto your elbows with your knees down. I am not going to do that because my hip is very tight today. Then we're just going to repeat the one we did on the other side. So bringing your left leg through, taking your left leg out slightly wider to the side, putting both hands inside, and then coming up into a lunge. And then coming back down. And that's a really good one for appreciating exactly what you can do. Even if you could only hold that one for a couple of seconds, it's a really amazing achievement to even just be able to kind of stretch out that far. And so we're just going to now come into our child's pose. Just coming out now with child's pose. Oh, I don't know about you, but I feel quite chilled. So that was, as I say, just a simple practice with a few poses in, just to allow you the time as you do the poses to reflect on your kind of self-talk throughout your yoga practice. I want you to try and cultivate a real sense of positiveness when you do yoga, not a sense of negativity around what you can't do today or that sort of thing. And I think sometimes when we go in flow movements, it's easy for us to skip some of the things that we feel we can't do and almost kind of skirt over it. And I think there's actually strength in acknowledging sometimes that there are things that we can't do today. And in some ways, that's what the practice was about. You might be able to do the whole thing, and that's great, because there wasn't stuff in there that was, you know, technically difficult, but there were some challenging postures. And it's that challenge and how you respond to it, which is, I guess, what I'm trying to focus on in terms of this idea of gratitude. It's about being grateful for what you can do today, because tomorrow it could be completely different. So focus on the here and now. So thank you for joining me today, and I will see you all again tomorrow.